Hi everyone, it's Donna. Welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to share that starting today, I am part of the Whimsy Stamp creative video team. There is a giveaway on the Whimsy Stamp channel to celebrate the new design team members, which I will share that with you in just a little bit. But for my card today, I'm creating a slimline mermaid card featuring Let's Be Mermaids clear stamp set. I'm also going to bring in that Sun Rays Stencil, as well as the Slimline Wave Die to finish off my card. I'll start my card off by creating the background, and for that I'm going to grab my favorite watercolor paper, which is Arch's watercolor paper pad. I have my panel that I've cut down and I've taped it to my board so that I can do some watercoloring using the Color Burst by Ken Oliver. So if you've never worked with these before, these are a highly pigmented watercolor in powder form. And if you have worked with these before, you know that a little goes a long way. So once I've sprinkled a little bit onto my paper, I activated the watercolor by spritzing it with water. And then I can tilt my board back and forth to kind of get that water to move and spread out across my entire panel. I'm creating like an underwater scene for my little mermaid, and I've grabbed some of the purples and the blues to create this background. I started with ultramarine blue from the Brights collection, and I used that blue to cover mostly the entire panel. And then I'm coming in with, I think that's Peony from the Fresh Floral collection. And I did add a little bit of violet also. Then I grabbed a water brush that I have sitting next to me with clean water. And I tried to move that ink around a little bit so that it would seamlessly blend into that blue. I tilted the board back and forth to get just a little more movement, and then I'm slightly drying my panel where there was large pools of water so that I can add a little more of one of the shades of blue. I think this is Prussian blue from the Fresh Florals collection. Anyway, as you can see, I'm tilting the board once again to the side just to get a little more of that darker shade of blue across the entire panel. And then I do heat dry my panel just a little bit before adding some texture with watered down acrylic paint. I have my paint on a piece of acetate sheet, and I've just added a little water to water it down, and then I'm taking an old paintbrush and I'm splattering that paint across my entire panel. I do set the panel aside to dry, and in the meantime I'll start working on coloring my images. I stamped out my mermaid and some of these smaller images onto a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I've used Memento Tuxedo ink because these are both Copic friendly. I am using my Copic markers to color this in, and I've left the coloring in just for the mermaid, but if you are interested in the other color combinations that I've used, I will have a link to my blog where you can check that information out. So while I'm coloring, I will mention all of that information about the Whimsy Creative Team announcement. As I mentioned, as of today, I am part of the Whimsy Stamps creative video team. I will be sharing at least 3 videos per month on the Whimsy Stamp channel. And Whimsy Stamps is celebrating with a giveaway over on their channel, which I will have a link to that down below. So the way that the giveaway will work and how you can participate is to head on over to the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel, which again, I will have that link down below. Watch the Meet the Creative Team video and leave a comment letting them know what type of content you would love to see and which team member brought you to their channel. They are giving away 4 prizes, 1 for each new team member, so you do have to let them know which member brought you to their channel in order to qualify for one of the gift cards. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that little bell so that you're notified of when new content is posted. There are 3 other members besides myself, each of who will bring different type of content, so I do encourage you to head on over to their channel and check them out. Okay, so back to the coloring. I finished coloring her skin in and I started coloring her hair. I am using E49, E47, E43, and E42 to color in her hair. Now typically I color dark to light, except for hair. I do start with my lightest shade and then I build up in each next shade so that I don't add too much of the dark. Now I did have to speed up this video like 4.5 times just to keep the viewing time to something manageable. So here I'm going to start coloring the tail, and let's just talk about her tail for a moment. I wanted her tail to match a shade similar to the background colors. The RV family markers were too bright and the Violet family markers were too dark. And honestly, I didn't even consider the BW family. So my solution was to mix several shades of the RW and the Violet family to kind of get the color I want. I think in the end I used like 7 different marker shades to get the color that I want. The great thing about this particular image is that she has that long tail, and so I was able to get all of those colors in to get that blend matched as the top of her portion. I will also mention that the V000 you see on the screen is not actually what I used. I had the wrong cap on the marker, and what I used is actually an RV01. No, I used a V01. And I think that was the marker that really toned down the brightness of all of those RV markers. Anyway, I finished off the image by adding some dot detail using a white gel pen. So a little tip for when you're working with watercolors and you have a panel that may have warped just a little bit. Once that panel is completely dry, I typically will run the panel through my laminating machine because I find that the heat and the pressure of the machine will straighten that panel out, if not completely, but quite a bit. I did trim down the panel to 3 1/4 by 8 1/4, which is the measurement of that slimline die I plan to use. Here I'm going to create some rays of light shining down through the water, and I have my Make Art Station out and I am securing the sun ray stencil to that panel. Then I'm coming in with some white pigment ink and a finger dauber, and I'm just adding some subtle rays coming down. And since my stencil is not quite as long as my panel, here all I'm doing is I'm shifting my stencil down, and then in order for it to line up on what I had previously ink blended, I'm going to have to shift some of those rays over just a little bit so they line up evenly. And then I'll just continue adding the ink all the way, at least halfway to that panel. So I'll finish that, and once I have it all finished, I'm just taking a clean paper towel and just rubbing off some of that ink just to fade it out a little bit and make it more part of the scene. I used the Waves Slimline Die to die cut the panel about 3 times, and I did die cut it from Nina's Solar White 110-pound cardstock. And then I'm going to use a little bit of liquid adhesive and attach all of those together. I do have my Misty out to help me position that sentiment. I'm trying to position it in between the wave layers. And then once I have it in place, I can just remove the frame away and stamp out my sentiment. I did treat the panel with anti-static powder, and then I'm coming in with Versamark ink to stamp the sentiment out. I go ahead and stamp it out a couple of times because this is watercolor paper and the texture of the paper sometimes will affect the outcome. And of course I completely forgot that my pigment ink is probably still a little wet, and I've added white embossing powder. So some of it stuck to the rays, and I just cleaned it off with a small paintbrush that I have just to remove some of that extra powder. At this point, I have all of my elements ready to be adhered, and I'm starting with the frame die cut. I'm adding just a little bit of liquid adhesive, and I will add that to the top of my frame, or to my panel. And I should have aligned it just a little bit better, but part of the frame is covering one of the letters in my sentiment, but it's okay. And then I'm gonna grab all of my images, which I have them popped up on foam squares, and I will start arranging them to create my little scene. So that is it for my card for today. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. After this video, be sure to head on over to the Whimsy Stamp channel and watch the Meet the Creative Team video for your chance to win one of the 4 gift cards. Also, be sure to leave a comment on that video and let them know that I sent you. I would love to catch up with you on social media, which I have linked down below, so if you're interested, check that out. Here are a couple of other videos that you may be interested in, and as always, thank you so much for stopping by. I'll see you next time.